All right, we're live. The last word. We've been stricken by COVID. Our software has a virus. Our captain, Captain Brian View is off camera. He is sick, and we're having some technical difficulties. But we're live. We're here. It's the last word. Brian, you want to get one of your few and potentially last words in?
They won't be my last words, but they will be short words. The COVID came around hot and heavy this week. I don't know where I got it from.
You got the dirty D COVID, not the Japanese COVID. So
that's right.
Hey, like they said, Detroit hustles harder, and the Detroit COVID got you. So I hope you feel better, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Lots going on this week. I figured we could talk about a couple things, talk about inflation, the Fed next week, game planning for next year, some of the AI stuff that I've been seeing out there. And then, of course, we can talk about the government cabinet taking shape, CFPB being, quote, deleted, and CFPB capping bank overdraft fees at $5. That's pretty amazing. So maybe we'll just start with like some of the econ news first. So, there's a narrative out there about inflation and how it's sticky and how we're not going to get to the 2%. And so I just want to dispel some of the rumors because, people have these thoughts and I keep seeing them type them over and over for years, literally years. And despite the thoughts that inflation's never getting to 2%, it's sticky, and we're going to raise rates, and the 10-year Treasury is going to go back to 5%. Like none of that's happening. So let's address the main one that everyone says a lot. Maybe we can all get on the same page. Chair Powell has said openly that they're comfortable with a 2 to 2.5% core PCE. Okay, so personal consumption expenditure, the core number, is the number that's the main inflation number that drives the Fed's actions. So, if the CPI comes out and it's at 2.8% and up from 2.7%, it's not 2%. But some people are just like, if it doesn't get to 2% and stay at 2%, it's not going to happen. But we had a 50 basis point cut, a 25 basis point cut in the next week. We're probably going to have another 25 basis point cut. We're a 96% chance. And so what I think people kind of misunderstand about inflation and the Fed's neutral rate or their target or where they're ultimately going to go, which they don't know the ultimate number. But the number to look at is the 2-year Treasury yield. So it's not the 10-year. It's not CPI inflation. It is the 2-year Treasury yield. That's what's known as market rates. And so the Fed funds rate is a short-term overnight rate, a lending facility rate from Treasury and the Fed to banks. And so they're restrictive. Anytime they're above the 2% yield on the Treasury, they are in restrictive territory. They don't want to be restrictive anymore. They want to get to a neutral rate where it's right on par. So yesterday, the 2-year Treasury closed at 420. And that 420 number is obviously much lower than where the Fed funds rate is today. So remember, the Fed funds was at 525 to 550. Then a 50 basis point cut, they got to 475 to 5. Another 25 basis point cut, they're at 450 to 475. Another 25 bips, they're at 425 to 450, which is called 4.375 for those of us that work in eighths on our rate sheet. And again, the 2-year Treasury is at 420. So they have room for another 25 basis point cut. And what will be interesting to watch is next week when they meet, what they say for 2025. So just to recap for those watching, they meet every 6 weeks, but every other meeting, so every 12 weeks, they put out the summary of economic projections, and that's also known as the dot plot. So they literally, all 19 members put on a dot plot where they think the Fed funds rate is going to be at the end of 25, end of 26. GDP, where it's going to be at the end of 25 and 26. Unemployment rate, where it's going to be in 25 and 26. And inflation, where they think inflation will be. So you're going to get a look at what they think next week. And the market has priced in only 3 more total cuts of 25 basis points. So you guys remember for about a year, I was saying, hey, look out, the Fed may, everyone's saying how many cuts they're going to do, thinking they only do 25s. But I was saying, they could do a 50 basis point cut right out the gate because they're so restrictive. And they don't want to run the risk of being highly restrictive. And I even put a bet out there with a gentleman on my LinkedIn feed and community. And so I don't think they'll do another 50 basis point cut. Hello, Christy.
Hi. So sorry. I'm running a couple minutes behind. But
No worries. 13 again.
I had the wrong link.
No. You're on at 13 minutes after the hour. My lucky number is 13. It's Friday the 13th. I said all this stuff about the number 13 that was happening on my video live last night and did it again. I'm telling you, the universe is so weird. I can't even go there. I swear we're being trolled by the simulation. We just had Brian. He talked a little bit.
He has COVID. This is awful.
I said it might be his last words, and they were. So thank you for leaving him out of the bullpen. There's my Barry Habib phone call. So that must mean the bond market is selling off, and it's time to lock your loan. I haven't taken a look at the 10-year Treasury. If you want to look it up while I finish my little rant.
I'm looking it up now.
I was just talking about the Fed and how they really follow core PC in the 2-year Treasury yield. They're going to cut 25 basis points, and then they're going to say what they think inflation is when they put up their dot plot next week. And that's the thing for everyone to look at. Now, if the market is pricing in only 3 more 25 basis point cuts, that's 25 next week, and then 25 and 25 all in next year. And so they may skip the January meeting, which I think is the 19th or something like that. They may skip that meeting, pause to look at the data, let it come in because they can, because the 2-year Treasury is at 4.20 and they'll be at 4.25 to 4.50 on the Fed funds short-term overnight rate. What did you get on the 10-year Treasury?
We're down 56 basis points from yesterday's close.
5.6. What are we at?
We're hold on. I was looking at
You're looking at MBS.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 10-year, but we're down 56. So we're at 98.84. Oh my God! It's all red. It's all red.
What's the yield?
Give me 1 minute.
I think you look at the MBS, which means people, we just got an alert to lock, right? So
yeah, I'm not looking at the MBS, by the way. I am looking at the U.S. Treasury, but in the chart that I pulled up, it doesn't show me what the yield is. So I'm like, wait a minute, because this is not my normal chart. I just pulled up a new one. So give me 1 sec.
No problem.
Keep going.
So it'd be interesting to see. First of all, the market. I always look at the CME Fed Funds Future Tool. So for those of us watching, you can look that up. It's on my desktop. That's one of my browser windows that I take a look at. And it was interesting to see that there's a 98.6% chance of a 25 basis point cut next week when the CPI came out. And the next day, the PPI came out a little hotter, and that went down to 96%. So still in the bag, but it was interesting to see that the PPI was hotter enough to move the needle a little bit, and CPI showed improvement. And the reason why CPI showed improvement, and again, it's not the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, core PCE is, but in that CPI report, shelter housing costs went down 14 basis points. It was the 8th largest deceleration of shelter inflation in CPI ever. So I know we have we're up 1 month, down 1 month, up a little bit, down a little bit, but this was such a deceleration in just 1 month that it was extremely meaningful in November. And that's not distorted by, that's seasonally adjusted. There was no hurricanes or wildfires. And in fact, wildfire season being over, my construction partners, Jason and Britt, husband and wife team, they live in Malibu Canyon. They literally had a fire in their canyon. They had to evacuate their 3 kids, then go back. My buddy Jason went back and they had some livestock. They had to evacuate that. But we're very fortunate that the winds were blowing out towards Pepperdine, which had to get evacuated as well.
Yep.
And I know it's crazy, but then it's been less windy, cloudy. We had a little bit of drizzle and rain here last couple of days. And I don't think it's any coincidence that fire season, hurricane season are mostly over. Hurricane season is definitely over, all the peak periods. So Farmers Insurance said they're going to insure 9,500 new policies a month in the state of California, up from their 7,000. There's new legislation coming through our state. So we're going to get some reprieve in insurance costs going into next year, which is huge. For home.
I don't know that I buy that, KP. Just because they're going to agree to write them doesn't mean that it's going to be less costly.
At first it will be, right? Always subject to change, right? If there's another fire or whatever the case may be, yes, but they had to cut a deal with the state of California, and California is basically allowing farmers and other insurances to use their own catastrophe modeling, which is what the state tried to ingest their nose into and say, hey, you have a cap. We just can't let you go up on your costs. And they're like, we're out. So State Farm pulled out, Farmers pulled out. And those are the two largest insurers in America, in the state for sure. And so who was left? Like the FAIR plan is a state plan, a state run plan. That there's a cap there, but it's just not as good as having more liquidity insuring homeowners. So
we're at 4.399 on the 10-year.
Okay, yeah. So that's about 5 basis points up, 6 basis points up from yesterday, in the close. Now
4.33.
Yep, and so that is where we track mortgage rates. That 10-year Treasury yield is not where the Fed tracks market rates to decide how much to cut. They follow the 2-year Treasury. And so it's very interesting because we're in a weird time where institutional traders don't believe that we're going to rein in spending here. We have a continuing resolution that's on the table from the House, and we're trying to pass a budget, trying to pass the National Defense Authorization Act. And, budgets are 10-year propositions, right? And they get recalculated, but everything is a 10-year run. So what happens is the longer end of the yield curve, 10-year treasuries, 20-year bonds, and 30-year long bonds, those yields have been going up, and 2-year treasury yields and notes under 2 years, 6-month notes, 2-month notes, 1-year bills is what they call them when they're short term. The bills yields have generally come down or stayed flat and not gone up at the same pace as the longer term bonds. And just to put a bow on that is that, longer term is, hey, we're structurally increasing our debt and deficit, and we have a lot of interest, which is why the Fed has to cut, so we have less of an interest payment. But short-term treasuries and bills are coming down because we have less of a risk of going into recession, noted by 2.8% Q3 GDP, and the first reading for Q4 is 3.3. So growth is up. So the other side of the ledger, other than debt and deficit, is we're growing our $27 trillion a year economy, and we're the biggest in the world by far. I think China is like 17 trillion, and the GDP in Japan is like 4 trillion. So that is the mechanics of the yield curve, and you hear like longer term duration and what that means, and how the Fed acts with Treasury to basically sell the Department of Treasury to sell treasuries to fund our government. So that's what's going on, and we had a lot of good information, and we'll get some certainty and some clarity next week.
Well, one of the things I know we wanted to talk about today was, and you were saying it earlier, talk a little bit about AI and what's going on in the industry and how we're seeing that. So what is your current take on where you see that going?
So I think a lot of us have been looking how AI can help us with income analysis software and making underwriters more efficient. But I think this next wave, which is now, is up front with salespeople. So sales assistance is here, right? And so what I've seen is what I've seen is just lights out. I mean, I've been on a fact-finding mission in 2025, but recently stepped my game up, mostly because the tech has gotten better, and there are some winners that we could pick, and also because we at PRMG have some projects rolling out. Like we have a brand new portal for our wholesale and correspondent channel with about 25% of new files coming in on that, and we'll make a hard cutover to that here shortly. And then we have an income analysis software that we have a short list that we're testing and rolling out and that kind of stuff. So for us, those projects get towards the end, and then I load up a new project for a roadmap, and the timing is now for us, and I think for the industry. So this is how I classify it. So you guys may be different. So AI sales assistance for fulfillment, getting docs to be better, flagging things in a file. Like I saw one called Friday Harbor. It's amazing. I've got their contract. We're going through a technical call. We've had 2 demos, looked at their contract. Great tech. And I know there's a lot of good tech out there. I'm just using that one because that's what we've chosen. And so the documents come in, the originator, processor, and loan officer assistant are able to use this AI, and it's saying, hey, the phone number on the pay stub is different than the phone number for the employer on the app. This borrower on their bank statement has a mortgage payment, but it's not on the credit report. And so you're flagging things and catching things in a millisecond or two, which means people are collecting this stuff up front and catching it at origination, which for distributor retail is great because the distributor retail teams, they bear the brunt and cost on their P&L of processors, LOAs, and the originators. And so that is one classification. And then the other one is upfront sales activities. I've seen, an AI that will take inbound calls or texts or emails and kind of talk conversationally with a borrower, all the way to I've seen a voice assistant literally make outbound calls and have a live phone call with a borrower in conversation live, listening to what it says and saying, okay, like the one I saw, from the Total Expert show, it's called Sella. They had a female AI assistant called Jessie, and this old lady was like, yeah, you guys are all calling me all the time, and I'm talking to a bunch of y'all, but I'm not ready to go until next month. And then it instantly, a female voice over talking an elderly female lady. I would never over talk a female in this time and age, right? I try to be very intentional about not doing it. I know it's not appropriate, right? Women are finding their voice and they don't need a man to step over it. Well, this female bot just rolled right over this old lady. Okay, I hear you. You've got some things going on in life, but if you just give me a couple more pieces of information, I can tell you your buying power. So next month, when you're ready to buy, you'll be ready to go. It literally took the time frame that she said the next month and used it in the very next reply. And there was a pause, and everyone in the room's like looking at each other. And the old lady's like, okay.
I've looked at the same tech that you have, and I think that a lot of us in the industry have started with AI in the background because it's a little safer. It's not interfering with your sales team. You're letting them continue to do the things that they do best, and you don't have the exposure from a regulatory risk standpoint of what and how are you interacting with consumers. And so I think you saw a lot of us go in that direction as a beginning stage. And that isn't these are the things we should be doing, testing it in a safe and compliant manner and the impact that it has. The pieces that we've integrated and the additional pieces that we're looking at have really increased the efficiency. To your point, it's getting things closer to the front end of the process. And I think back from, even when I first started in the business, there's always been this window of right up front, borrowers are happy to give you as many docs as you need. Happy is not the right word. They're willing to give you as many docs as you need because they're like, hey, this is the process and this is what's happening. You get a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into that, the closer you get to closing and the longer away from the start of the process you are, they're less excited about sharing additional docs with you because it's a hassle. You should have asked for this up front, right? And the Stratmore data supports this, that when you have to go back to a borrower multiple times, your overall net promoter score drops, the customer satisfaction drops, and your likelihood of getting additional referrals from that agent and that borrower diminish significantly. So you want to push everything to the front of the process. And I think a lot of the AI that we've implemented has allowed that to happen. And if you're at an organization that hasn't done that, or you're not sure, you should definitely ask your team what they're doing, what they're looking at, because not everybody is bleeding edge or even cutting edge. Some companies prefer to your point, see who the winners are, make those picks and implement so that they can save money and pass that along to you. There's no right or wrong strategy here. But I think we're to the point where we should all be looking at how AI can help with those definitely not consumer facing processes and can help you be more efficient. And I'm with you. I have seen a couple of the AI bots that not only that act as a loan officer assistant. One of my favorites lets them, look up guidelines and acts as a scenario desk. So it's kind of an interface between the loan officer and the underwriter, creating a more seamless process because you're getting those answers faster. They're able to look it up. They're able to document it. You can include it in your file and, have that cut and paste over. So really cool. I have also looked at a couple that, to your point, they'll make calls and do things on your behalf. And I think I'm still in the camp of, I'm not quite ready to implement that until we get a little bit more regulatory guidance with where the cabinet lands and how they're going to view these things. I'm optimistic that the regulatory environment will be such that we've had some of these demos and we can kind of have them on the sidelines going, hey, this is who we pick, once we feel confident that our regulator is going to be supportive of it.
Yeah, I agree. And all great points. And everyone's having these similar discussions in their leadership teams internally. I'll just say, this spring will be 5 years we've been on Capacity, which is our internal AI bot answering questions, doing guidelines, really helping all of our help desks with task routing. And that one we've been on AI, literally on, it used to be called Jane.ai, right? And so great tech team, one of the best in the business. I'll say the upfront sales, outbound calling voice AI assistant is the one that gives people a little pause, which is why we're rolling that out likely second. But I will just kind of challenge all the compliance teams to think about it like this. And I think this is where the rubber meets the road. We have regulation. And so we know what is licensed activity versus what is not. Currently, loan officer assistants help gather information for loan applications, unsupervised and unregulated. And so what these AI techs will do is actually put written transcripts of these conversations that are happening, which right now we have nothing of that. So this will help us go to a regulator and go, we want to monitor these phone calls. We want to improve them. We want to make sure they are above board. So like, for example, in California, there are like 5 states where if you're using AI, you have to say, hey, I'm Jesse, I'm an AI assistant, and I'm going to help get you through the process. So you have to announce that you're an AI assistant. So then if you just say, I'll just have the assistant do that in every state, you know what? You might not get as good a conversion, right? Maybe that elderly lady that I, use that phone example for, which is a test and was presented to us, of course, cherry picked by the vendor because it was such a good overcoming of the objection. But maybe if Jessie said she was AI, you might not have gotten as good a conversion. Not sure yet, but I can tell you 8 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, my salespeople would say, "Oh, okay, I'll call you back later," or "Here's my number, call me when you're ready." And that deal's dead because then that lady, when she's ready, the moment she's ready, she picks up the phone and calls someone, and then that deal goes to that person. And so there's that aspect of it. Like don't collect the social security number, don't talk rate, don't talk terms of loan. Those are all things that require a license that Jessie, the AI assistant, is not licensed.
Right.
So I think there's actually a lot of rules already on the books. And I think this administration, David Sachs, Elon Musk. I just rolled out 2 days ago version 13 of my full self-driving. It's unbelievable. They get 4 billion more miles under record, which could happen in the next, 5 months. Then the state of Texas and California can approve completely autonomous driving where you don't have to touch the wheel, don't have to put your cell phone down, you can literally kick back and, put your seat back. Because Waymo has it now. It's level 4. The Tesla's full self-driving is level 5. Waymo is geo-fenced in. So like only in LA, only in certain areas. LA, San Francisco, Dallas, Austin, New York, Phoenix. And so the point is, with Elon and David Sachs and, this whole group that's up there, there's never been a more AI experienced leadership team in DC. And I actually read an article on Axios, which is a liberal newsletter, saying that Democrats are stepping up and they want to have a seat on the DOGE committee. So the Department of Government and Efficiency, that was total Freudian slip. So what's interesting is, if regulation does get cemented, I think it will be very favorable for us, the regulation. And if it gets passed and it gets cemented in the next 2 to 4 years, then going forward, that's really good for all of us, because I think it will be a more business-friendly standard that gets set for us to be more confident. So, yeah, we can wait until that comes out. But again, I think, just as my opinion, and I can be outvoted certainly even within my own walls, but I think the RESPA, TILA, licensing, Dodd-Frank, what the CFPB looks for in all of our exams that we've all had as lenders, FHFA, which we don't have a new director picked yet, we don't have one from CFPB picked yet. They've been pretty clear what they're looking for. So don't rip off borrowers, don't do unlicensed activity, don't do any steering, don't have any bias in your AI. And business as usual. And I'll say one more thing. One of those calls was a 13.5-minute call. This is the most impressive part. This lady in Palm Springs, she's talking about her 2 dogs and her house is all she's got, and she's got to go to work at the restaurant. It's really tough. And that 13.5-minute therapy session ended with, let's get some more information from Jesse, to the borrower going, okay, let me give you some more information. Then a counter invite gets set and the LO walks into work, and there's an appointment for them to call the borrower back in Palm Springs and do all the license activity that they have to do based on current regulations. That's 13.5 minutes that originator got back. We have 700,000 past records, 600,000 past fundings, 100,000 turndowns and prospects. Imagine, calling out one at a time, scrubbing the do not call list, which we do, logging that call, and then doing it one at a time, not making 700,000 calls all at once, which AI is capable of doing, and not using ringless voicemail and stuff like that. You've got a pretty compliant way to outreach, and that's extremely powerful. And so so think of 13 minutes plus at 700,000 records and ongoing, the time that just got saved. Screw conversion rate, just the time given back. And so I'm so hopeful for where AI is right now in voice, and it's only going to get better.
I agree with you. I think that there will be the opportunity to get a lot of efficiency. We've already seen a lot of efficiency around the pieces that we've rolled out, and how it's letting people focus on, it's not, and to the point that people keep making, it's not about eliminating jobs. It is about being able to scale with the folks that you have and continue to grow so that their jobs are protected, and letting them do the higher level things that only they can do. And I love the only I exercise. What are the only, what's the things that only you or I can do or should be doing? Like, where can we delegate? And when we can delegate to technology at a reasonable cost, when we can delegate to technology, because some of these techs are pretty pricey. Some of them are very reasonably priced, particularly as you're looking at some of the fun startups and folks that are like, hey, we really need those partners that are going to give us feedback. They're going to help us build out to where the product should be. And I love those kind of partnerships. You can't do everything with that type of partnership, but I love the type of partnership because you're really you end up getting a lot of custom development. and a lot of say so in how that product ends up and really being impactful for your organization.
Agreed. And when DUNLP was created, underwriters are going to be automated out of existence. And with all the new stuff going in the appraisal world, appraisers were going to be automated out of existence. They're both highly coveted positions and highly paid positions still. And I put out about once a week an internal global video to my entire company. And the one I put out last night, I said, hey, we're looking at some AI stuff to help you do more. So I made it clear, so people on my staff understand we're not trying to replace them. We're trying to enhance them. And so it goes back to will AI replace my job? AI will replace jobs where people don't learn how to use AI on their job. And so I think there'll be some thinning of the herd globally. A loan officer that's doing one loan a month, if you're and not providing new leads, may be at risk of losing their job due to AI sales voice assistance, and that person may not make it anyway, even in the current environment.
As insecure, I don't think that they're at risk of losing their job because we got AI. They're at risk of losing their job because they're not producing what most companies have as a minimum level of expectations.
Agreed. And how many originators do you and I have on staff that we let linger around longer than they should, and they're a lost cause? Whereas an AI assistant could come in and be a champion. I mean, the voice is as good as everyone except the top 1% in our business. And so, it might just accelerate them losing that job, which they were going to anyway. And again, that's time. It's time for the branch manager who manages the P&L. It's like, oh, well, I really like this person and I think they can make it, but they don't make it. And so instead of letting them linger around another 3 months, you shuffle them out the door. And again, I'm not advocating against that. I mean, talent is talent. I mean, in our current environment where we're built by originators for originators, we coach, we coddle, we train, but some people don't make it, and it's not because of us wanting to automate them out of their job. It's because they ultimately are deemed to be not good at their job or not good enough.
Right. No. And we all have areas that we need to improve. Efficiency, really operational efficiency is one of those areas. And when I say operational efficiency, I'm not just talking about your ops team. I'm talking about everything that you do to get the widget from the beginning all the way to the end. That's operational efficiency. And our job is to help those borrowers in the most convenient way possible, meeting them where they are. And AI is a tool that can do that. I know that we are, about 10 minutes over time today. We started a little late, but
the recording is right on point.
I know we're right at the half-hour mark here.
Yeah.
From a recording standpoint. So for those who are joining late, watching some replay.
Shout out to the CFPB. I know it's not something you hear a lot. Paul Hinman had a post about the CFPB and what they do. They brought $1.8 billion back to borrowers and consumers' pockets from a bad actor credit restoration company. With the $5 cap on financial institutions with $10 billion or more assets under management, the $5 cap on overdraft fees is projected to save the average household $225 a year, $5 billion. Now, that may be inflated, and that may get challenged in court, and that may not ultimately pass. But it's 6 point.
I would go back to yay to the CFPB for the fraudulent company and refunding that money. Kudos, double thumbs up, and all the cheers. I don't know that when you look at the $5 cap, if that's going to have the intended effect.
Agreed.
It's ideally, it's like, yes, you want to do these things. There's some ways that banks, that institutions can or have structured NSF fees where they're paying the biggest one first to create more NSFs and more charges versus paying the lowest one first, versus what time of the day do they do it? Do they allow correction between the end of the day if you make a deposit later in the day, but that check presented in the morning? When are they doing the reconciliation and charging the fees? So if you cut the fee back to $5 from a different number, does it end up with the impact to the consumers that you want to have? And as we think about things like free checking that have helped underserved folks have access to bank accounts, and a financial institution has to make money some way, right? Let's talk about, we can talk about Chase or Wells or, pick your flavor. They have to make money. So where do they charge? How do other charges appear? And what does that mean for other products and services? And is the consumer really better off? And I think that's a topic for another day, maybe not even a topic for us to discuss given our side of the business. But I think it's really fascinating to understand, like, what is the interplay between all of these things and what is the overall impact to the consumer? Because our goal is to get money back into their pocket. I look at, where I come from a credit union. You clearly, by the way, hit my soapbox here.
My credit union.
Your credit union, right? As you think about that, our job, like our mission is to put money back in members' pockets. And so I think about it from a way of, and we have to also be sustainable and sustain operations. We want to do it at the lowest cost possible. Now we don't charge NSF fees. So, we're at zero, but the costs come out in other ways. We have free checking. But what do other institutions that aren't operating with the same mission that we are? What happens to the consumer and which consumers are most impacted? Because publicly traded companies have to report earnings to the street, and they can't just go, we're going to take less. Like, that's not the way this is going to work out. So I'm really fascinated with seeing this, and I want to see consumers put first, just like I like seeing members put first. And how do we put them in a better off financial position?
Well said. And you get the last word.
Well, I want to thank our sponsors today, FinLocker and PRMG, Robbie and the Chrisman commentary, for always making sure that we're here, that we get to give value back. I appreciate everybody that joins us every week. And next week, we're going to have the special Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen.
I threw that out there because there's 4 partners at PRMG, and that's the moniker we gave ourselves, about 7.5, 8 years ago, when Gary Malice joined our team. And so I'm obviously the horseman of war because I'm out on the march and I'm hunting, and not afraid to throw out the voice AI bot, for example, whereas our CEO, and like most CEOs, is the horseman of death, right? So yeah, sorry, we're not doing that. Yeah, sorry, this cost ain't happening. Yeah, that dog don't hunt. And then Gary and Robert, our COO and Chief Strategy and Capital Markets Officer, they kind of fight back and forth who's pestilence and who's famine.
Well, we're not going to have that conversation on next Friday. We're just going to bring kind of a wrap-up summary to the year end. This will be our last show of the year as we take 2 weeks off, heading into 2025. It's going to be a great one. We're going to go a little long next time.
Yeah.
So make plans to join us for, I think it's an entire hour we're going to do next time.
Yeah, entire hour.
So it's going to be great. We thank everybody for joining us today. We thank our sponsors. KP, I appreciate your always being here. Hook 'em horns. We got a game coming up on the 21st.
First time we've ever played Clemson, ever.
Are you coming? It's here.
I'm coming. I haven't told my wife yet.
Okay. I won't spoil your secret.
I did buy my airline ticket and I got the game tickets working right now, but both quarterbacks, one was from South Lake Carroll and the other, the Clemson quarterback, Cade, is from Westlake right there in Austin, and they faced off in the state championship of Texas in 2020. So some storylines developing.
This will be entertaining. Safe travels here. We will see you in Austin soon, sir.
All right. Hope to see you in your hubs again.
All right. Sounds good. And I don't
Cheers.
know how we're ending this. We're not in charge. So I guess
Brian's been listening. He needs to come on here. So y'all have a great weekend. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.